Oh boy, here we go again. Today, my friends, we have another crazy Star Wars movie update. So, the other day, Kathleen Kennedy, in her goodbye interview with Deadline.com, revealed that Taika Waititi had turned in a script for his upcoming Star Wars film, and she described it as hilarious and great, which did raise a lot of eyebrows. We always kind of knew this was going to be a comedy, but it was never a film many fans were too excited about, and it's now been nearly 6 years since it was first announced. And at the time, here's how Kathleen Kennedy described it.
Taika's approach to Star Wars will be fresh, unexpected, and unique.
But we still know next to nothing about this movie, and I think what's put a lot of people off is the fact it's Taika Waititi. He's got a very distinctive style. He really leans hard into the goofy, self-aware, comedic aspects of film. And to add to all of this, he's explicitly said he wants to piss off Star Wars fans. So it's not a great start. It's not exactly a movie fans are clamoring for. However, it might be coming sooner than you think. In August of 2025, so this past summer, information came out from Nexus Point News that the movie was codenamed Cosmic Doom. A very vague title, something that doesn't really scream comedy, but Taika reassures us he thinks it's going to be a funny film. And today, we have another update. Taika himself has given us a few new hints. In a new interview with Variety.com, here's what he said. I'm just trying to go back and harness a little bit more of the fun from the original trilogy. The stakes are very high and there are some serious things going on, but there's also a lot of fun. So let's try to piece this together. The working title is Cosmic Doom. This implies some kind of devastating event, and in the teaser, the visuals of the teaser in 2020, we saw scattered fragments of rock in the galactic cosmos. So maybe a time period that is chaotic. And now Taika teases the backdrop for the movie is serious, but it's focused on the fun side of Star Wars, inspired by the original trilogy, and in the spirit of it. So maybe a comedic adventure in the wake of a disaster of some kind. Maybe post-Alderaan, maybe post-Great Hyperspace Disaster, maybe something related to the fall of Starlight Beacon. There's a lot Taika could do with this, and when he says fun, he might be talking about the jokes and the quick wit in the midst of danger, which we do see a lot in episodes 4, 5, and 6. Han Solo lying over the intercom, Leia grabbing the blaster because she thinks Han and Luke are useless, some of the interactions in the cantina scene in A New Hope, the back and forths between Han and Luke in Return of the Jedi. Star Wars is definitely full of wit, but it's a very specific flavour of comedy, and I don't know if Taika's up to the job, and I also doubt we need a whole movie full of it. I guess with Taika, the question ultimately is, are we talking about comedy on the level of Thor Ragnarok or Thor Love and Thunder? It's a massive distinction, and I think what's really panicked fans is he's in charge of the script and directing. He's not great as a writer, but he can direct. I think there'd be a different reaction if he was in charge of just the directing side of things, but as Kathy said, it's his script that he turned in, and I have a feeling this movie is not as far away as we think. I don't necessarily know if it's going to be the 2028 movie, but it's one that we're getting increasingly a lot of updates for, but not even Kathleen Kennedy knows. As she said the other day, it's not just my decision, especially when I've got one foot out the door. This is something I think Dave Filoni has to decide. And something to note about Kathy's wording, which to me sounded scripted and pre-prepared, is that she notes which movies are on hold and which ones aren't. Mangold's Dawn of the Jedi is on hold. That's a script he worked on with Beau Willimon. The Hollywood Reporter thinks Filoni's film's on hold, but not Taika's movie. This one might be further along than we know, and I guess it's up to Dave to pull the trigger and for pre-production to begin. My question is this the kind of Star Wars movie Dave Filoni would want? There's been a lot going around in the last few days about Dave's tastes. There was a report saying he didn't like Andor, then there was another one saying he didn't like Star Wars Visions, and whether you believe those or you don't, it puts into question, now that Kathy is gone, what kind of Star Wars projects is he going to approve, and which ones are going to be scrapped? In this case, it's no secret, Taika Waititi's Star Wars movie was a Kathleen Kennedy endeavour. She's the one who picked him and said he would make a great Star Wars movie. And we'd been hearing about a Star Wars comedy project in the works since late 2019. But if Dave isn't a fan of this, for all we know, it might become a cancelled project, something entirely removed from the slate. Now, as Kathy said, she's going to continue producing Star Wars movies. 2 of them already confirmed, The Mandalorian and Grogu, and Starfighter. But she doesn't have a say anymore as to what gets approved and what doesn't. I'm sure she's going to still consult with Dave, give him advice, but if Dave and Linwin don't want this to happen, it's up to them. It's no longer Kathy's choice, It's no longer her Lucasfilm. And I have to admit, amongst all the Star Wars movies either still confirmed or just announced, this is the one I almost hope doesn't happen. Because with some of the others, even if I don't necessarily see the appeal myself, I can see a situation where I say, it was a worthwhile addition to the canon. Even if it wasn't for me or it wasn't something I would choose to watch, it's something which I can see fans getting a lot of enjoyment out of. But Taika's movie, based on the things he said, sounds like at best, it'll be a light-hearted comedy everyone forgets about, or at worst, a train wreck that derails Star Wars even further. And if anything, I want Star Wars to get darker. Light-heartedness has its place. We've had great additions like Skeleton Crew, there are episodes of animation in the Clone Wars and Rebels, which gives us a lot of that, but as a live-action feature film, I don't think it's gonna work. Like I say, I'd honestly like for Star Wars to get darker with maybe some horror films, maybe more political dramas, more along the lines of Star Wars for adults, but an entire movie dedicated to Taika Waititi's style of comedy in the Star Wars universe. I wish I was more optimistic, but I'm not. I'm sorry, it just doesn't sound like it's gonna work. And I know this is anecdotal, but I've been scrolling through social media to see fans' reactions to this, and I've not seen a single comment that says, this is what Star Wars needs. This is the movie that's gonna save the franchise. This is the movie that Dave Filoni needs to approve. I haven't seen any of that. Not even from fans who seem to like everything Disney puts out. So that should tell you where we're at. If you want to position this on a scale of Star Wars projects that would do absolute wonders for the IP, and on the other end, Star Wars projects that would destroy it, this comes really close to the other side. The prospect of this, and again I could be prejudging a bit too harshly, would be worse than The Acolyte, and worse than how a lot of fans see The Last Jedi. And here's the thing, his work on Mando was fine, but once again he had no say in the writing of the episode. He was the director and the voice of IG-11. Big difference. But giving him a whole Star Wars movie to write and direct is pretty risky, and I don't think Star Wars needs more poor judgment and to be taken even less seriously than what we've seen in the last few years, especially on the big screen. Star Wars needs a win, and in terms of fun, Star Wars adventures, we have The Mandalorian and Grogu coming up. I haven't seen the film, none of us have, but it seems to me like the perfect balance between the jovial and goofy side of the universe and something more serious. If they wanted Taika to direct his own Star Wars comedy, they should have given him an animated show, something like Star Wars Detours, something that is not serious, not part of canon, and that is intended as a kind of piss take. Something on Disney Plus that's relatively low stake, but they're doing the opposite. Like he says, the stakes are very high, there's something serious going on in the backdrop, but he's focusing on the fun aspects of it. But what do you guys think? How do you feel about a Taika Waititi Star Wars movie? And what do you think about his latest comments, that it's going to be in the spirit of the original Star Wars trilogy? Share your thoughts in the comments down below, my dear friends. And if you enjoyed this one, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, check me out on socials, and may the Force be with you, always.